All right, I'm back. I'm here this afternoon now to talk about another tool that we're using at ATC as we kind of get off the ground with really starting to implement our pollinator program. And, you know, we're starting to get some habitat on the ground. We're issuing these grants like I spoke about before. We're implementing a monitoring program for habitat assessment for pollinators. We have a monitoring system that we're implementing. And so the tool I'm going to talk to you about today is now how we're utilizing an ArcGIS online tool to really try to track everything that we're doing out there, from the amount of pollinator acreage we're getting on the ground to the scores of our monitoring assessments. So this is a tool that's in its infancy. I'm not a GIS expert. I work with my internal GIS department at ATC and kind of went to them and said, I need something that can do something like this. I don't really know what I need, but we need to get started because this is a train that's left the station and I need to start tracking this. So I talked to Iris about that and thought it was important that even though this tool isn't perfect yet, that it's important for us to jump in and try some new things and either sink or swim and share those experiences with each other at this point. So that's what this will be about. So again, why did we need this? We're out there doing these things and I needed to track it using my quote-unquote master spreadsheet on SharePoint and asking my veg management department, all the different environmental consultants we have on capital projects to input things into SharePoint and then upload photos here, the befores and the afters and the seed mixes and everything. It just wasn't working. We needed a bit more of a collaborative process where we can include mapping, ways to analyze that data, and store information like the photos and the monitoring results and the seed mixes we were using and everything. So we really had a need for that to track and quantify these activities. So what did we decide to use? As I mentioned it before, we're using ArcGIS, which is an Esri product. Again, I'm not an expert in this tool, but it's an online cloud-based mapping and analysis solution where you can create maps, analyze data, share data, and really kind of build a system how you want it to work for you. And we were already using this in ATC, largely on our capital projects to really track everything from environmental resources and access plans to tracking the status of our construction projects, status of restoration, where we're restoring, what types of seed mixes we were using, and whatnot. Vegetation management is just getting on board. That department using ArcGIS Online as a planning tool to plan all of their work and notifications with landowners and whatnot. So it seemed to make perfect sense to utilize the same type of system for my pollinator tracking, as it's tied very closely to capital projects and vegetation management. So the more collaborative it can all be was a win for me. Those of you who have heard me present at past working group sessions, I am also able to store my power model data, which is our kind of identified enhancement areas for pollinators that we've a model we've utilized. That also is able to be stored in this site, so I can also use that planning information in this site as well as using it to store information. So it's really kind of a one-stop shop for me for managing all of my pollinator efforts. So how do we use this? You're going to have to bear with me with screenshots because I got a little too nervous to try to hook my computer up and walk you through it all live. And my GIS guy sent me this little thing I can plug into my phone, and I got a little freaked out. So we're going with screenshots, my plan B, because so anyways, if anyone, I do have my computer with me, so if anyone would like to sit down and maybe see this live in action a little bit more. I know Mark and I need to do that anyways, but I'd be willing to do that if this isn't going to come across that well. But anyways, how do you use this? So I'm going to start with how we use it for monitoring. So ATC has a program where we are doing pollinator habitat monitoring on some of our sites. We have put together a habitat monitoring form kind of on our own. I know the working group's working on getting one together, but we didn't want to miss the years that we've already been doing this. So we just took a combination of monarch joint ventures and xerxes societies, pollinator habitat monitoring guidelines, and kind of married them up and kind of created our own form that we felt worked for us. And then what it does is it does calculate a pollinator score for that habitat. So there's a way to kind of compare sites with a consistent scoring process. But you use a mobile device in the field. And so this is essentially screenshots from a cell phone or a tablet or something. And you just pull up. We use the Collector app. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. I know a lot of people are starting to use this in AGO and whatnot. But you pull up a Collector app on your phone, and essentially, I don't know, is there a pointer on this? Is that what this is? Oh, great. Okay. So you see this little plus sign. You just kind of select that to add a new site. So let's say you're out in the field and you're going to say, this is a new site I want to start monitoring. And the site is from this structure, transmission line right of way, again, is what we manage at ATC. So thinking I'm out on the electric transmission right of way, and let's say my site is from one structure to the next structure. You would just say you want to add a site into the system. And then you essentially just draw that site in when you're in the field on Collector. There's, different ways to do it, but you draw your site in and the extents of your site, and then you would just launch what's called a Survey 123 form. So from Collector app, we launch out to Survey 123. And in that, we have our monitoring form, our habitat monitoring form, entered into this Survey 123. So right out in the field, you can complete the habitat monitoring form. I'm not going to go today into what data we collect. That's kind of a whole other subject. But like I said, we do it consistently across our sites, and it does create a pollinator score for us. The cool thing about this is when you're, you can see it puts a point right in where you're collecting that monitoring point. And you can see, there's a lot of just drop-down menus that are in there. Survey types you would just select. It's pretty easy to use in the field. And the cool thing about it right here is you can attach site photos. So right from where you're standing, you just select that, you take your photo right where you are, and then that photo is stored right in the AGO system. So that's really nice because you know exactly where your photo is taken, what direction you were facing, those sorts of things. And then you just, when you're, a site pollinator quality score will be created, and then you just send your survey, and it goes, makes that noise, and it's up in the system. I did learn that if you're in an area with no service, it doesn't send right then. Once you get back into the office and you're in that area of service, you need to resend it. So there's all these little things you learn. And then what happens is you get issued a new cell phone, and the data sticks with that cell phone, not your sign-in data, and so then those all get lost when you get a new cell phone. So again, these are the things you learn along the way, but they're important. So that's how you do the form. And then what I do, I get out in the field every now and then to enter forms, but mostly I have biologists or consultants that are out there supporting our capital project work where we're doing, a lot of pollinator seeding. We do monitor also some of our vegetation management sites where we're doing that so we can, monitor the benefits that those activities have as well. But I mostly get to just sit back at the office and go into the system and look at all the data that's being collected. So I'm just going to bring up, an example of one site here then and how I can use the data that's being collected to analyze my program and kind of compile the data and analyze the data. So, it's very easy then when you are back at the site, you can bookmark, oops, that was about the pointer button. You can bookmark the site. So this is an example of a site where we built a brand new substation out in the middle of a farm field. on a new project that we had. This yellow markation along our right-of-way is that power model information showing that this was a good area for enhancement for pollinators. So we decided when we put the substation in that we would do some pollinator planting around it. It was a requirement to do a landscaping plan when we permitted the substation. So we did pollinator seeding here. This was our site that was drawn in. And so what I can do back at the office, you saw these two little dots here. Those are demarcating that there's been 2 monitoring points done on this site. So I can pull up one of those monitoring sites. And the first one that I pull up was our baseline survey that was conducted. And you can see up here, it's going to tell me the pollinator score and the acreage of that site. So I have a 2.18 acre site and baseline before we planted anything, and the site looked like this. That's the photo I can pull up. The score was 11. I pull up the next monitoring point associated with that site, and this is the photo I pull up. You can see the substation's been built. My score went to a 41. That's still my 2.18 acre site, and that's the other photo I can pull up. So this is how I can look and analyze the data back in the office. You can also create Excel spreadsheets, analyze your data. We can look at everything from our pollinator acreage, project types, whether it's capital project, grant project, vegetation management, acreage that we're bringing in. I can filter my data however I want. Really think of using an Excel spreadsheet then and how you can manipulate all your data. I can kick this out and share the data. I can incorporate data from my capital project sites, knowing where they use pollinator seed mix and bring it into my AGO site, and I can kick data out. So we use this site to then kick out our shape files and share, like with Mark Johnson, with the Field Museum, to incorporate into the geospatial database that the working group works on. And it's just easier, I think, to share the data in a GIS shape file to maybe start, accumulating all of our efforts that we have out there. So that's another thing that it can do for the extraction of the data. You can build these neat dashboards. As you can see, we've done 179 different monitoring points across our system. This I might play around with and change what I want on my dashboard as I learn what the system can do and what I really want to know from it. I wanted to share a few challenges, as we've built this, just so we can all learn from each other. Training outside consultants, that's mainly who I have using this, is going to be really important. I've noticed that some polygons are missing when they've drawn in a site, or they're drawing in a site every time they're in the field instead of just selecting the site that's there, so it's double counting my acreage. So I have some more training I need to do with my consultants and some cleanup I need to go in the site and manage. Some of them just haven't been uploading photos, or the photos they upload are too large, that we need to teach them how to kind of condense the photo size down before they upload. And then some issues with our form, just if they don't fill out every single drop down that they have, it won't calculate a score. So there's some learning things. We've only been using the site and implementing it for one growing season, just in 2018. So we're still learning from this as we go. Hopefully we'll get some of these bugs worked out before this 2019 season when we're out there collecting data and drawing in sites. But the system should easily be able to incorporate changes to the monitoring form. We're a member of the advisory team for the CCAA, and assume we'll be doing some monitoring associated with that. So I'm sure this system will easily be able to accommodate the form I would need for that effort and where I'm monitoring, and able to keep track of all of that type of data that I will need to support the CCAA as that kicks off.